In early 2021, the capital city of Nairobi was classified as the dirtiest city in Kenya, with the US Air Quality Index reading of 73. With a figure such as this, the air quality can be classified as moderate, according to recommendations by the World Health Organization. To that end, innovators are partnered with county governments to deploy devices that could warn and monitor air quality.
Consumers of this data are mostly researchers and government entities. Research informs policy. And so both these parties need data. You cannot treat what you do not know.
Companies like Air Quality Systems say different devices can be deployed around the city depending on several parameters.
In terms of air quality monitors, we have from the most simplistic ones, the most basic ones, to now the most complex and most regulated gadgets.
Air quality testing is achieved using various devices, such as a passive sampler like this one, that work using the principle of diffusion, using a diffusion tube that is placed into a protective shelter to collect data by analyzing different gases. Another air monitor is a UPass sampler, which can be worn and is 99% accurate as a reference station. The other is a low-cost sensor, which is also fairly accurate and can be deployed in numbers. It has also sensors that collect data through its breathers, which are then analyzed and corrected on the computer. This notwithstanding, players in the sector, however, now say there has to be adequate sensitization on air quality for air quality monitoring to be enhanced across the country.
For awareness and culture, that has been a huge stumbling block, because you have to, this thing is harming you, and they can't really feel it or smell it. A lot of education has to be done, and public awareness campaigns.
Let me explain this because it's interesting. Have you ever wondered where the smoking bans come from? Factories releasing CO2 into the air, or vehicles giving black smoke, and even the smoking ban from cigarettes. These policy directions come from data research that come from these particular devices. These air quality monitors inform the research that then brings out the policy directions that give these bans. Alanauko, take one.
This is a healthy orchard of Hass avocados, a high-yielding cash crop sought after for exports. These trees look healthy and bountiful, but it was never always this way. Kinyua Kanata, the owner of this farm, attributes the changes to his solar trap device.
Forced coloring moth is not climate specific. It will attack fruits in both cold and warm regions equally. And it is a quarantine pest such that if it is discovered in a container, for example in Europe or China, that container is taken back.
Kanata found out about a local innovation developed by one Mutuma Morioki, who, with a 1 million shillings grant from Haifa International's Ayute program, developed the device.
This is one of the solutions that we provide, the solar trap, where the farmers now we are able to help the farmers eradicate the forced codling moth through the use of solar, in this case.
Included in this device is a 5-watt solar panel which traps light from the sun to charge the device batteries. The panel also powers several sensors that detect and isolate pests. The LED light bulb works to attract specific pests, especially the destructive false coding moth FCM. At night, the LED light turns on to attract pests, which then fall into the soapy water below and are trapped from escaping.
It's the way we've designed it is it's an industry use application where it can get rained on, it can get all the dust, it can get everything, and it will still function properly in the farm. In the households, it can't work because maybe you might ask about mosquitoes. We've designed it more for the agricultural industry.
Farmers who have used the system say the device can reduce pests by 80%, with plans including the incorporation of global positioning systems. Since 2023, over 200 farmers have benefited from the technology. Morioki says the device costs 30,000 shillings with a lifespan of 5 years, where farmers can return the gadget to the innovator to be repurposed. Morioki's dream is to expand his operations countrywide to benefit more farmers who are battling pests. But for now, the LED lights continue to illuminate in Meru County, with every flicker giving farmers more hope.
The power of voltaics applied not only for water solutions. This is applying local solutions for local problems. Alanauko for Take One.
Good morning and welcome to this live broadcast. This morning on BizCheck, we look at two conversations: the state of the publishing sector here in the country, how it has evolved over the years, this event as the East Africa Education Publisher celebrates 60 years of existence. How has that landscape looked like, especially in the advent of technology and by extension, artificial intelligence? We'll do that in this first hour. In the next hour, we navel gaze on the risk advisory as well as insurance firm for just basically in this ending 2025, how have they done to protect the Kenyan corporate, particularly when it comes to various themes and areas like climate and insurance, the well-being of Kenyans in the corporate sector, issues as well of cyber security and the threats therein. That is what we look at in the second hour. This is BizCheck. Welcome to this live program. I'm Doreen Arange, and for our first conversation on the publishing sector and the country, how it has evolved, I'm joined by John Kiriamiti, who is an author. You know him for some of his books, like, for instance, My Life in Crime, as well as various other books that he has written and published. John, welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
Now, you were just telling me earlier that you've written many books, and your book, like My Life in Crime, was written way, way early. You're even telling me even before I was
born. I think so, yes. I think way before you were born.
All right.
Because actually it was even published while I was still in prison.
Which year was this?
That was in 1984.
Indeed, it's true. It's true. 1984. So this was My Life in Crime.
My Life in Crime, yes.
All right. Let's just at least go back a bit and begin by your writing journey. At least walk us through who John Kiriamiti was. At what point did you feel the zeal, need, and want to start writing books before we go further?
Well, I've always been the same person, John Kiriamiti, and that's all I know, except that I was once arrested and sent to prison for a very long time. Fortunately, my sentence was slashed. I remained in 14 years, which I served. And while I was there, I read a lot.
While in prison?
While in prison.
For these 14 years?
For those 14 years.
Okay.
And actually, I am even proud to tell people that I was the first person to introduce education in Kenya prisons. I remember I was imprisoned with some cattle rustlers from Pokot who didn't know even to write their names. I felt pity for them and thought of starting to let them know at least how to write their name. And that's how it started. That's how education started in Naivasha Maximum Prison. And then, while there, I continued reading widely. Although it was illegal, we were not allowed to have books there. I would have some smuggled in and I would read at night. That's how I became a writer.
Now, for the benefit of our viewers who would not perhaps be familiar with who John Kiriamiti is, maybe they just hear of him in history books or in history lessons, maybe just tell us, what was this that made you arrested those years back then, and which year was this, and the circumstances surrounding that?
It's interesting, but for those who have read my works, already know why I was imprisoned. It's because of bank robberies, which happened during mid-60s and 70s.
So
yeah, I was arrested with the entire gang and imprisoned for 28 years. But fortunately, the law court cut short the sentence to 14. Said that it should run concurrently, which means those were two charges, and each had sentenced for 14 years, totaling 28. Then it was slashed, and we served 14 years.
Which year was this?
That was in 1971.
1971.
Yes, that's when I was sent to prison.
That was when you were sent to prison, and then you served 14 years.
14 years. But then, as I was about to complete 14 years, I was released out of good behavioral change. Yeah.
And this was all around issues of robbery, violence that had sent you.
Yes, even if you read my first book, you see, during those years, there were so many cases of robbery, violence. And then it involved banks only. That was during that time.
Yeah, because majority of us have really interacted with you in news, just as those stories were being told much later, in later years. But then again, who was John growing up? Just to tie how this came into issues of robbery and violence, the arrest and subsequent becoming an author and writing such impactful books like My Life in Crime and various others. But who was John growing up?
Oh, John was a son, and he's still a son of two teachers. My dad and my mom were teachers, so even when we were small, we were very well disciplined. But I think you beat your kids so much, and they get used to those beatings and become rude. And I think this is what happened to me.
Okay.
Yes, because I even dropped out of school when I was still in Form 1. And I never went back to school. In fact, the kind of education I have today, I acquired it in prison through reading books. And there came a time when we were allowed to receive books from outside. Even there were some who were allowed to do journalism who were there. And I joined them. I did journalism while I was still in prison. I actually even got a diploma in journalism. And even when I left prison, I started freelancing for national newspapers, like The Nation, The Standard, and others. For some time, yeah.
Okay. So you can safely say you're a journalist by profession.
By profession,
and writing, reading is embedded in you.
Yes.
All right.
Because if you told me to write about anything, you only need to tell me I want this, and I start writing.
Okay.
I would like to mention, like when I wrote that book, Son of Fate, like which you had them, it sounded a lot. And even readers complained and said that I finished the book as if I was in a hurry to put the pen down. So I decided to write a sequel to the same book. This is how I came up with the Sinister Trophy. And I wrote it in 3 weeks and handed it over to my publishers.
So basically, your book, My Life in Crime, is one that is mostly known. This was written just after prison, after the 14 years, during that prison period. And what was that process like? At this point, what was going through your mind?
No, I was only thinking about how I could let people know that crime does not pay.
Okay.
And fortunately, I need to mention that the person who introduced me to my current publishers is the late Professor Gugi Wathiango. He's the first person to read my work while it was still in pieces of papers. And I even remember him saying he was fearing that he could not be able to read those papers. He could not read them because they were in pieces, small pieces. Then he continues saying when he started reading, he could not put them down. So even as I understand my publishers are enjoying their 60 years in publishing. I feel very proud of them, because if it wasn't for them, I don't think I would be who I am today.
And even talking about his publishers enjoying 60 years of publishing, just to remind you, we were expecting the Chief Executive Officer, East African Educational Publishers, that is Kiare Kamau, but due to unforeseen circumstances, he's unable to be here. Nonetheless, we are here with John Kiriamiti, who is an author, just talking about his journey in the publishing sector, as well as looking at how this entire sector has changed and revolutionized over the years. But also, John, you said that your first works, like for instance that Your Life in Crime, as well as some of the other literally works that you've done, one of those persons that really believed in your craft then was the late Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who would read those, shall I say, pieces of papers.
They were so small.
What did this do to you as a young author, writer then?
I just wanted to write what I had in mind. No, but after reading so much, for instance, I always like quoting some writers like Mwangi Gichelo, the late Mwangi Gichelo. When I read his book, Across the Bridge, I noted he wanted to write about crime and life imprisonment and how life in prison is like. And I really pitied him, because he didn't know what life in prison was really like. That's why I decided to write.
You had lived it?
I had lived it. I wanted to tell him, no, don't try in any way to praise prison, because this is the worst place one can ever be. That's why I wrote about prison. And as you can, maybe you already know, my last work, as for now, is My Life in Prison. I wrote that book, My Life in Prison. And that's the 5th work EAP has published for me. And I'm hoping to write another one, because I have the 6th one, The Abduction Squad. But I'm not talking about this.
What has been
abductions that are happening here. It's some abductions that happened some time during Moi regime.
Yeah, this is what you hope to write.
But it's already over. It's finished.
You finished
it's
writing
with my
it?
publishers. I think they are going to publish it any time.
Then tell me, John, I'm really reading a lot of you having an affinity towards crime writing, My Life in Crime, as you say, My Life in Prison, your last work, what's now with the publishers, Abduction Squad. What is this, should I say, liking just around issues of crime, prison, abduction and the likes? Why is it revolving around such?
But it shouldn't surprise you.
No,
if I'm telling you I became a criminal, I was only a minor. How else would I?
No, one would assume that perhaps after My Life in Crime and the weight, it was such a big book, this was it, message was home.
People don't change. Don't think that I've changed much. Don't think that you can slap me and I turn around.
Let's not think you've changed much.
No.
What's that supposed to mean?
No, it depends on how you take it. It will tell you that you cannot slap me and expect me to run away from you.
All right.
Yes, I hope to reiterate and do it very badly. Because I know there's some belief I have.
Yes.
And I think you agree with me if I asked you, have you stolen a pencil while you were in school? A pencil or a rubber or something that did not belong to you, and even a socks while you were in secular, did you?
I don't think I want to answer that.
Please do. Because if you want our listeners to know that you have you done that?
Stolen a what?
Anything, even if it's a rubber.
No, me, I've not.
You have. But anyway, let me agree with you.
Okay,
but
I have.
I want people to know.
Yes.
You have.
Yes.
Actually, now I'm talking to a thief, but a retired one. You did not go ahead. It's like education.
What is the veracity of that?
Someone would drop out of school while still in study one.
Yes.
Others will continue even to university. This is what happened. That's what happens even in crime. I would have dropped while I was still a teenager, but I continued.
All right.
But however, it doesn't mean that you are a criminal. You become a criminal when you start doing it repeatedly and doing other things that are not. Because I even tell people, if you go to maternity wards, our mothers give birth, you will not see a word written that this one for mothers who give birth to criminals, to doctors, to professors. Children are born all alike. But as they grow, is where the difference comes. Some continue with school, like you had asked me, having had 2 teachers
Yeah.
as my parents,
Yeah.
and the beatings I got made me become a hardcore. This is why I even decided to run away from home. So you see, you don't have to be very harsh with your children.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when that happened, there was no turning back.
Ordinarily, one would expect that having parents as both teachers, such disciplinarians, you turn out very good, very disciplined. But this is, for in your case, and your story was the exact opposite. So it depicts something entirely different.
Yeah, because
Even-
those days, there were so many crimes, and teachers looked like angels. Behaved like the angels. Everybody deemed a teacher like someone very important
Yes.
in the society. So when they start beating you, you feel like, no, this is not the thing. In fact, that's what happened to me. And
Yeah. And I know very shortly we will be heading to just try and understand the publishing sector as a whole then and now, because you've written in those days, you're also writing now, especially with your recent book, we'll do that. But I also feel it's very important to understand your journey, your works, and how this has led to what we have now. Perhaps this is where I'm really staying a lot into some of this, your literary works, and also just try to understand why it's more about issues of crime. But you've let us know very well that people don't change. They rarely don't change, and sometimes just instilling this knowledge in them at least would make someone be a better person. Maybe not all that better, but a better person to society.
if you remember, I've completed my work with saying crime does not pay.
Yes.
And this is why I give a very good story and eventually end up with someone going to prison or being punished. So this tells everybody that crime does not pay.
All right. Crime indeed does not pay. Now, your book, My Life in Crime, were you surprised at at the kind of reception it got?
Yeah. I did not expect that.
Why? When the society is the same as is.
I think people like crime.
Why do people
sometimes
like crime?
Because when you write a crime work, they would read it, they would buy it. Look at the way the book My Life in Crime has sold. Again, the sequel to My Life in Crime, My Life is a Criminal. To be honest, I've written millions out of those works. Those 2 books. Now look at it being filmed. The film rights have been bought 3 times. And I think it's not an easy thing to produce a film out of a book. But I know it has already been bought 3 times. So people like reading about crime, not to become criminals,
Yes.
but to know what happens to one's life after indulging in crime for so long.
All right, I hear you. Now, when you look at the publishing landscape, John, over the years, you wrote in the 70s, 80s, you're also writing in this 21st century. Just first of all, from that bit, let's try and understand, how was it then and now? How do you just juxtapose these 2 seasons of life as far as writing and publishing is concerned?
It's very easy these days. Like I told you, when I was told to write a sequel to Son of Fate, I did it in 3 weeks. But when you write on pieces of papers and actually with a pen, and not necessarily a pen because you don't afford pens in prison, it's a pencil, which you can hide or throw away when there comes a charge. These days things are very different. And I think I should even mention here, maybe you know or you don't know, there is a lot of, I don't know what you call it in English, because I see people are now reading it from, what do you call that literature? Reading from of course, the phones.
Yeah.
And some have copied my work and are selling it. Selling my works on phone, so you go read it. I've tried to talk to them, but they cannot. Yeah. So I would like even people to know, if you see someone's work and it's not the one who has done it on, what do you call that?
Piracy?
No, not piracy. When you are reading from...
E-books.
E-books, yeah. Exactly. If it's not by the author, you know you're reading pirated work.
And that has been one of the biggest challenges in the sector.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. To what end has this affected you? Because like you mentioned, when you try and compare how it was then and now, there's a big difference. You talked about Stand of It and how you did it in only 3 weeks. You can't compare to how you did My Life in Crime and your other earlier works. It took time and time on end. So it means technology could be a good thing and a bad thing. Where do we draw the line?
Well, only when people become trusted. But you know, they like cheap things. As I said, most of them are thieves. You know, stealing doesn't necessarily mean stealing money.
Crime comes on board.
When you do work like that, when you pirate someone's work, you are a terrible thief. Only that you are doing it with the current technology. So I would advise people to read hard copies until the publishers decide to go that way, to go to e-books.
Is that viable in this time with the advent of AI and the advent of e-books? Much as this is what you'd call for?
It would be horrible. It's good to have hard work, to write it, to have it where, of course, it's not everyone who can afford a phone. So, like, I don't know, some of you people who are grown in town don't know what's happened to those in Lisau. Because they don't have anything, they don't have the TVs, they don't have even phones, handsets. So they have to read that hard work, printed work, yeah.
As an author, how has this affected you?
Well, I lost, but since I cannot estimate the loss,
Yes.
I cannot say anything about that.
But it has largely affected you as an author.
Yeah, as an author, you feel, and like you see someone even telling you, I can send you this and this and this, you read. Some of them don't even know when they are talking with me. And they tell me they will send me. There are groups that do it. And when I come and join the group and advise them, well, there are groups that listen to me and stop doing it. But not all.
No, not all.
And after all, they cannot put the whole work there. No. They will make some pages and you wouldn't know.
So in your view, what needs to be done? Because truth be told, John, as we continue living, technology is sort of becoming the order of the day. And now with the advent of artificial intelligence, is even making it sort of better or even worse, depending on how you really want to look at it. So this is not something that is perhaps ending in the near future. What can be done? So then also authors, publishers can feel safeguarded, honored with their work.
That's a very good question. But then with us, you only depend on our publishers. And they try a lot. They tell people not to do that. And they are the only people we can depend on because I cannot be able to reach more than the people I know. Yes. But the publishers will reach everyone.
So as an
and I think they are doing that. I quite agree with them. And then, let those who are doing that know they can draw a prison sentence out of that. And they would be very lucky.
Because that's crime.
It's crime. And they would be very lucky when because if I reach them, they wouldn't like it. They would pay me to the last cent.
If you reach them, they wouldn't like it. Okay. I know your works are not just surrounding crimes, issues, but much of it is that. But again, take us through what inspires you as an author to come up with the pieces and works that you
It's much reading. Reading helps a lot. Like I remember, you read, like I told you, I read about Monticello's Across the Bridge, and so many things that are left out. I've read even the likes of Sheldon, Ludlam. You need to read widely in order to become a writer. And then, when you read the likes of Ludlam, you know they are writing about things from their point of view, from what they know in their, what happens where they are. So all you need is do it and change. Now, bring what you have to your place, to Kenya, where people will understand everything you talk about.
Read widely to become an author. It's all about reading. It adds to your knowledge. Do you feel as though this is something that perhaps is missing, especially amongst the young generation, and to what extent?
Yeah, it's very interesting because they don't read. They don't read, but they only read when they hear that there is a book which is interesting, and they start borrowing. In fact, most of my fans tell me that they read it when they were in school. And they tell me, like in a certain girls' school in Kahuya Girls, where my current wife was a student, they would tear the book into pieces. While you're reading page 1, the other one is reading page 3 or 4, like that. They would share it in pages. Now you see, they cannot wait for you to finish the book and then pass it over. And at the end of the day, it becomes rags. So you see, we are talking about one book being read by over 300 people. Instead of thinking of buying one yourself and having it for your family, your siblings, you want to read those pieces.
So basically they just read for the sake of reading because they're in school, because it's a
they're
requirement.
in school and they have those pieces to read.
Yeah.
But when they come out sometimes, you find that they come looking for the book, but then, most of them cannot afford. I know of friends, even help them because they could become, 5 of them would want one book. They go for one book, and then I told them, now go. When you have bought 3 books, I'll give you 2 free of charge. So I help them that way.
Just to give them morale to read.
Keep them reading.
Why do you think that is so amongst the young crop?
Oh, the young criminals you're talking about. Yes, that's what they are.
Okay.
But then they change. If they read the book and really understand it, they will learn that crime does not, and they will run away from that. Because you cannot say crime pays while you understand people are being sent to prison for 30 years, and today they are sentenced to death. So you should at least crime does not pay, and this is not something you should even think about as a young man.
What I really want to get from you, John, is when you look at the young people, in your view, why do you think there's the disinterest in the reading culture? Because you just did say that read widely, not just to become an author, just also to be a knowledgeable, smart person, but that is a sort of lacking.
But it's because of the changes. Like, look at what you are now. During our time, you didn't have a place like this, where you are talking and everyone is listening to you. Then live something. And like we said, today's technology is all over. You will see, like I have my grandchildren, sometimes they even show me how to operate my own headset. So you see, this is the kind of generation we have.
They change in time with the advent of technology.
They have changed to something else.
All right, I hear you.
So unless the government thinks of something else, watakuwa tu wanaona what they saw, what they said, what do you call this, one time, when they went out there.
Okay, I hear you. And the Chief Executive Officer, East Africa Educational Publishers, is here. That is Kiarie Kamau. He's just getting ready. The moment we have him ready, we'll be bringing him on board to just also walk us through the journey of the publishing industry. 60 years since the establishment of EAEP across in Kenya and across the region. How has that journey looked like in the publishing sector, bringing on board young people in the publishing sector, and also looking at the advent of technology? How is this affecting, or by extension, revolutionizing the publishing industry as a whole? Kiarie Kamau, as I mentioned, is here. But before we get to Kiarie, still on you, John Kiriamiti, just in your view, storytelling as a whole, whether through the books written or through conversations like this, how would you say this is changing the landscape of how people communicate and interact with each other?
Well, this is a new era. We've changed completely, because it's easy to get to thousands of people in a minute, while during our time, you wouldn't. Yet, the people are used to it now. You cannot go back to those years. In fact, if you don't have the kind of technology you have today, you look old-fashioned. And this is the thing. And these are the people now we have. The kids, like even those who are now 2 years old, know how to use a mobile phone. Something that we didn't even know about. So the world has changed, and we have to move the way it has changed. And maybe there are those who see like we do a lot, people like us, but the time will come when we'll look like old age and we'll be dumped in the dustbins. Okay. So you get the point. Time will come when the 2-year-olds are like our age. And then you will not have the likes of us on earth.
I hear you. And I'm really drawing a lot of technologies here with us. It is here to change. For those who embrace it, the better for them. But also there's the flip side of it, especially how it's affecting the sector. And I'm seeing as though is that middle ground. How to get a balance is where the challenge is oftentimes. But then just as you marinate on that, Kiari, just before we get to technology, Take us back a bit to 1965, the 60s, so to speak, when East African Education Publishers was sort of established. How was it like, and how has that journey been in the publishing sector over the years, 60 years later of celebrating this entity, powerhouse of EAPA?
Thank you very much. I must say that it has been quite an exciting journey, stimulating, so to speak, but also with its fair share of challenges. Way back in 1965, when this company started, it started as a British-owned company called Heinemann. And that time, it was not doing local publishing. It was mainly depending on imports from the UK. Then the books would come here. They would be distributed in Kenya and some parts of East Africa. But blow by blow, in the 1970s, when our late chairman, Dr. Henry Chakava, joined Heinemann in 1972, he started now local publishing. And it is that local publishing that has brought EAP to where it is. So Heinemann, 1965, all through to the 1980s, and come 1992, Henry Chakava was able to marshal like-minded entrepreneurs in the area of education and publishing to buy off that British multinational Heinemann, and hence rebranded the company to East African Educational Publishers. So in the 1960s and 70s, we were very well known, especially because of the African Writers series. You know, publishing of iconic African authors like Chinua Achebe from Nigeria, Cyprian Ekwensi, also from Nigeria, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, our very own, here in Kenya, and later incorporating other authors from other parts of Africa, Okot Pabitek. I'm sure you have interacted with the Song of Lawino. Yeah. People like David Rubadiri, people like Taban Loliong of South Sudan, among very many others. So we built a very formidable force as the publisher of the finest literary works in Africa. And fortunately, we have been able to sustain that kind of trajectory. Yes.
Over the 60 years.
Over the 60 years.
So it's been a journey, and you can also look back and say, this is where we came from, and this is now where we are. A lot to celebrate as far as publishing is concerned in Kenya, and by extension, the region.
Indeed.
So those challenges that you mentioned, just talk to us about a few of them, and how EAEP
yes.
stood the test of time to still stand firm as a powerhouse and entity in publishing across the region.
I must mention that one, it was not easy actually to transition from a British-owned entity to a fully locally owned entity, East African Educational Publishers. You know, there were certain business-related challenges that goes with all mergers and acquisitions. Yeah. Fortunately, we were able to navigate that terrain. Secondly, all through, even when our author here and my friend John Kiriamit was being published, there was still the menace of book piracy. His book was a hit. The moment it was released, people were queuing to buy copies of the book. Yeah. But sooner rather than later, counterfeit copies were available, in the streets of Nairobi because it was very popular. That piracy has continued to plague book publishing in Kenya and in other parts of Africa and the rest of the world, even to date. We lose hundreds of millions every year due to piracy. Secondly, the issue of getting incentives from government is a big issue. We have always endeavored to build a strong knowledge economy, a strong creative economy. to encourage reading not just for exams, but actually reading for leisure, to build broader perspectives, to build broader knowledge. Unfortunately, books continue to be expensive thanks to, VAT on books, among other taxes that are levied. We have continued to lobby the government to remove the VAT on books. We have not yet managed to do so, but we are not relenting in that fight. The other one is general, lack of a strong, vibrant reading culture. And it has been made worse by advent of other media that distract people from reading. Again, we are not giving up. We say the reason we keep on publishing books across the board, storybooks for children, young novels for young adults, full-length novels, biographies and autobiographies, is because still there is that critical mass of readers. And the onus is on us as publishers, as authors, as lovers of the book, to continue promoting a reading culture. We should not give up.
I hear you, and you've really outlined a raft of those challenges, but nonetheless, still standing strong as a publishing entity.
Thank you.
But one
now,
thing...
would you allow me to commend him for one thing that I know you remember?
Yes.
Because Kyari Kamau is among those who have tried to fight the piracy.
Okay.
I remember one day we went to a certain source in Kirinyaga Road. He posed as a teacher, and I directed him to where we knew the source was. But I don't know why, because he was so smart, they suspected, this one cannot come here too. And they hid the books. We had even gone to the place, to the source of the counterfeit books. But they go twice. I think they thought this man cannot be a teacher, he's someone like a spy. You remember that time?
Let me add a light touch to what my friend John here has just mentioned. I do remember it was around 10 a.m. And this man put me in a very dangerous spot where we went into a very dark bar down the, and 10 a.m. it was full and people were already drunk. They were still drinking. So he encouraged me to have one drink and pose as a teacher. We talked to some few people there, made some orders of books, but somewhere along the lines, we started seeing strange characters coming, looking at us, going, coming, looking at us, and we had to literally bolt out of that place. Well, those are some of the dangers that go, with fighting piracy. It's a very dangerous thing. But again, as I have said, we will continue to fight it and unrelenting fight against counterfeit.
It just goes to explain how deep-rooted this issue is and really how it's affecting publishers. And from your view, Kiara, you'll explain to us to what extent this has affected publishers and even by extension deterred young publishers from trying to get into the crowd. But before that, there's something Kiara mentioned, John, especially when it came to incentives from government being one of the main challenges, the main issues affecting publishers. And one thing that would make one publish a book and say it's a bit too expensive for me to continue the next works and all, and perhaps stop at that point. So for you as a writer, as an author, how did this affect you? Was it an easy, difficult journey for you? How was it?
I don't know. It looks like I was a very lucky person, or probably because I was writing factual works from the beginning. I never got anything like that. Each time, and even I became very popular even to the people you're talking about. Most of police officers became my friends. Even today, if I move to a police station, I just introduce myself, you'll be surprised to see the number of friends I'll get from such places.
Kiriamiti is a familiar name.
My works were a bit different from what they really looked for. So I didn't get in that any kind of challenges.
So just minus writing factual works, does it also go down to, say, writing works that can resonate with you and I as an individual, as a human being? Does it go down to that? Yeah,
but when you write, of course, you know you are writing about the kind of characters you see every day. And some don't even identify themselves with the characters you are writing. But that doesn't worry the writer, because actually you don't write about them, but no, you don't even give the correct names of such people. So there's no way they can even think of themselves as the ones who are targeted.
I hear you.
So there's no challenge in that kind of work.
All right. Okay. Now, on that bit of incentives, Kiare, what has been your experience with publishers? So that then we maybe don't have so much as how we would expect, just leave alone the issue of technology and AI, which could be a different ballgame altogether. But that bit, how is it affecting publishers? And how it can be tackled?
Oh, yes. First and foremost, already in the Ministry of Culture, there is a segment of creative economy. That segment is very important to us as book publishers. We are publishers of fiction for children, for young adults, for adults. That segment should be seen to be active, especially when we do book fairs. We hold an international book fair here in Nairobi every September. We also hold a regional book fair, which we take to counties every May-June period. This year, we were in Kisii for that regional book fair. We would want, that segment of the creative economy to participate in such book fairs. We'd be keen to see county governments supporting us in such book fairs. Support in the form of stepping in if it is the issue of any levies, taxes that should be levied for the places that we occupy should be waived. Support in terms of having the governors, having the minister, having the permanent secretaries attending the book fairs and actually speaking about the value of books, the value of reading, the value of building a vibrant, strong and solid, creative, stroke knowledge economy. We want to see collaboration between the national government and the county governments with the publishers. I sit, I wear another cap. I'm the chair of the Kenya Publishers Association.
Yes.
And at KPA, we are always trying to build collaborations and partnerships. Collaborations and partnerships with NGOs, with the governments, and with other entities like international bodies. In that building of collaborations and partnerships, we'll be very keen if we strengthened the collaboration and partnership with the creative economy. We have been we collaborate with other book fairs in other parts of the world, and one that is very exciting is the Sharjah International Book Fair. Sharjah International Book Fair is driven by none other than the head of Sharjah. Opening ceremony, quite a number of sessions, prizes, and so on and so forth. That is the kind of thing that we would like to see, because in order for Kenya to compete favorably with the developed world, we must develop the knowledge economy. It stands first.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Now with your other cap as the chairperson, Kenya Publishers Association, you normally have the Nairobi International Book Fairs.
Yes.
Just from what you're saying, how does that turnout usually look like? To see indeed if we can elevate that reading book culture, or we still have a long way to go on this one?
What we have realized is that in terms of the people who visit, interact with the books, buy books, the children are the majority. We are not complaining. We are happy because catch them young. When they are young, they appreciate books, they value books, they buy books. We are happy, and we hope that they will grow with that love for books. But at the same time, we are encouraging adults. Let these children be accompanied by their, not just by their teachers, but also by their parents, their guardians, and their relatives. Let those adults also buy books, so that when you are seated in the evening or you are relaxing over the weekend, you are reading a book, but not necessarily just scrolling through funny, videos on TikTok and stuff like that. You will also encourage that child to value book. And we are not saying that modern media is bad. We are also trying converting. We are on the road of conversion of our books into modern media. But the print media will still continue to be relevant from the research that we have done for a couple of years to come, here in Kenya and in other parts of the world.
Yeah, one would say it's such an oxymoron to see the children forming the majority in such book fairs, but the older they grow, the lesser they become, you know,
unfortunate,
in such. But just before I come back to Kiriamiti again, there's the question of balancing books perhaps for learning, for school, as well as those for leisure. How has it been over the years in producing or publishing such books? The demand that comes in with that?
Yes, a good question. I think as publishers, the research that we have done is that 80% of the books that we publish are mainly educational books. They are textbooks, they are revision books, they are books tailored for exams. Then 20%, we look at the general reading materials. That is not a good divide. So as publishers, the onus again is on us. We have that challenge of ensuring that we improve on the number of books that we publish, targeting general readership.
Yeah, because 80-20, the margin is really...
Yes, it's
wide.
Not a good divide.
Yes.
And that is why sometimes you find that the drive is much more on passing examinations. After one has done exams, and we found very weird situations where students have done exam and then they start banning books. That should stop. That should stop, because doing that examination, finishing that examination is actually the beginning of even more learning, accommodating more knowledge. And that's why when people graduate, they are given the power to read and to do all that appertains to that degree.
Or sometimes we don't understand what that means.
What appertains to that degree is search for more knowledge, reading widely, expanding one's horizons in terms of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well said. John, do you think that is part of the challenge? 80% of books produced or published, they're for academia, 20% is for leisure and what you can read to just advance your knowledge. And maybe in your view, how can we change that? Because Kiara says that it's one thing that they're looking at as publishers to see how they can change that. But from you as an author, how can we work around that? So then we can expand and increase the reading culture.
Well, this can only be done from primary schools. But then, as a writer, you have to give people what they want to read. And there are times when you have nothing to tell them. So what I think we need right now are new writers who can identify with the youth we have today. For instance, if I write a book that looks like it's leaning on my side when I was a kid, then I'll be telling a very different story from what you have today. So I think what we need, and I think Mr. Kelly will agree with me, is to have new young writers. And the ground is open for them. I don't know why they don't even try to do it. And I believe everyone can become a writer. If you can be able to read a book and complete it, you can write one and complete. That is something I believe. Because no one is born a writer. And you see, I read my first book when I was still in prison on drugs. And now when I came out, I decided no. I even showed quite a number of people how to write. I have two friends who have also written books, although they have published for themselves. So what I can tell the youth is try, like you try anything else or other things, try writing and you'll be surprised to see how simple it is and how easy it is to do it, especially during this time, when you have everything that you desire.
As we begin to wind down, I'd like to throw this to you, Mr. Kiari. Just as you mentioned, the various other famous authors we've had over time. We've talked about the likes of Chinua Achebe, there's David Rubadiri, our very own Ngugi wa Thiong'o. And as John says, that we also need to have these young writers come up. So I'd just like you to respond to two things. Is it the fact that there's lack of inspiration amongst young people? And if that is so, why? And also on your end as publishers, for instance, how do you identify this emerging young talent and how do you help them?
Thank you. Again, it's very important for us as publishers to ensure that we discover, we develop, we nurture young talent. That is one of the things that at TAP we've been very keen on. And one way is, we get what we call unsolicited manuscripts. The term might not sound very good, but it's because these are manuscripts that come to us from people who have written, and they bring to us either physical copy or they send via email to try to get our interest to publish them. We have always taken very serious attention of such manuscripts, because it is from that spontaneous creativity that you get the finest works. Secondly, we go out of our way to commission. Commission is where now we say we want a book that talks about a certain, particular thematic concern or certain thematic concerns. So we go out there looking for young, talented authors, and we commission them to write. Then we guide them along the way until the work is complete.
Okay.
I must, however, say that we can do even better.
Yeah.
We can do better.
Yeah. Finally, 60 years later, how does the future look like for East Africa Educational Publishers?
It's a bit of a mouthful.
Yes. How does that look like?
Yes. It is bright.
Yeah.
The terrain, I always say that publishers all over Kenya and EAP in particular, we've only covered perhaps 35% of what should be covered. There is a lot that can be published. People want to write cookery books. They want them published. They want to share their authentic recipes. Are we publishing those kind of books? People want to write indigenous, locally, produced motivational books. Are we publishing them? And so many others. So the terrain is wide. The opportunities are endless. The media keeps on growing thanks to the new technologies. So we, as EAP, must move with the trends, must move with the times, must capture and move with the future.
I hear you. I finish with you, John Kiriamiti, as a veteran author, someone who's written in literally different generations. What is your last call, particularly to young, upcoming authors?
That's a very good line you have come across, because I feel, and I always tell them, we must reach the young generation. Right now as we talk, there are two people who have seen me with copies of what they have written and have self-published. But when you look at their works, you see it's lacking something. I would advise them, and those who are upcoming writers, to get in touch with publishers, and they will accept you like their own child. Let them advise you on what to do. Let them edit your work, because they have read so many works. They know what can sell and what cannot sell. You can write a book and love it yourself and think it will be a hit. But then all you have written is what you think. What you think is good for everyone. See a publisher, and the publishing have those let them do the reading for you, and then publish the book for you, so that it may reach as many readers as you think. Like those who have come to ask me for my help.
All right.
With you, like when I asked him the number of books he has produced, he has produced 250 copies. In fact, I even carried some for Mr. KK here, so that he may advise him. Because 250 copies, and then you sell them yourself, you're a non-starter.
It's close to impossible. I hear you.
See a publisher, and they will advise him.
Thank you.
Again, they will advertise the book and sell it right.
I hear you, Mr. John. Asante sana for making time for us. I have been speaking to Kiarie Kamau on the far left, who's the Chief Executive Officer, East Africa Educational Publishers, and also the Chairman for Kenya Publishers Association, KPA. Right next to him has been John Kiriamiti, a renowned author, mostly known for his famous book, My Life in Crime, and he has well outlined for us here what the thought process and how life was that prompted him to have this book. Asante sana, gentlemen, for making time for us. That is where I put a cap on this first conversation. Remember that in the next hour, We navel gaze on the risk advisory and insurance firm. We look at how the year 2025 has been, particularly for corporate Kenya, and what they have done to sort of like safeguard corporate Kenya when it comes to various issues such as climate insurance, the well-being of workers in the corporate industry, and issues of cyber threats and to what end this has affected them, as well as issues of AI and technology and how this has gone into the corporate world. We look at that in the next hour. For now, we take a very quick breather. We circle back with that. Stay with us.
When the hills gave way in Marakwet, thousands were left with nothing. But together, we can help them rise again. Join KBC in the Restore Hope, Restore Earth campaign, Unity in Adversity. Together for Marakwet. Donate through paybill number 522533, account number 8036543, or drop foodstuffs and supplies at Marakwet County offices. Every shilling, every tree, every act of kindness counts. KBC, bringing Kenyans together.
Long shot.
Hebu toka. Uko sawa?
Sasa at least lakini na nyinyi mkwange mnaweka pia tissue.
Ziko zimejaa, labda mmemaliza huko.
Hakuna. Wewe nilikuandikia message.
Bana.
Very good. Kwa nini unaandikia semeji matusi kwa simu yake alafu unasema ni mimi nilimwandikia? Yes. Calm down.
I don't know you now.
I know you and I want to give you secrets.
Mama, let me tell you, do not even
What
know
secrets?
Tayangu alinipatia tatu skuli namba nikatululu.
Kuna.
Nimekuja kukusaidia. Na nataka kuambia kuwa mayai yanaoa.
Mimi na jamii yangu tumefanya kazi kwa bidii, ndio maana tunaendelea.
Baada ya haya yote uliyotendewa na Usha, ni haki kwako kumsaidia pia.
Kiza dada, mwanzo upata kumjua huyo kijana, ikiwa kweli wampenda au la.
Kisha
Kiza mjomba, mimi nina shughuli nyingi sana ambazo nataka kufanya, kwa hiyo tafadhali, sina muda. Ukirudia tena tutakosana. Singita ndiye alimtusi, ndiposa kawa bila kuona haya.
Mbona hutaki kuwa mke wangu Mayeye?
Wengine watasema
Mira, kini kwa nataka kujua kama jina ako hospitalini.
make peace before it's too late.
Nini tena?
Shindwe na ulege.
Nani nafaa kuosha hivi vyombo? Mimi. Ebu harakisha unipikie chakula.
kama ungekuja leo ningekufa na njaa.
Nataka kula, si ndio? Panua mdomo.
Lazima tufanye evidence enough ya convince Chief Matata.
Nani amekuwa anatumia hii basin? Daddy, no. Here's your coffee.
I'm not interested.
Mbona nisukuma hivyo?
Kate chungu umenilisha kwa zaidi ya miaka 10. Nitakulisha kwa sekunde moja.
I'm here to piss you off daily as I smile.
Welcome back. We continue with our discussions. Time for now to look at risks lessons for corporate Kenya. My guest is here, Latif Wekesa, who is the General Manager and Head of Business Development at Minet Kenya. We'll be looking at some of those various areas like the cybersecurity, well-being, climate and insurance, and how this risk advisors as well as insurance firm, they're just doing to sort of like better help the corporate industry and workers in that sector. But also remember that you're waiting for a live link from Marsabit, where the Deputy President is, and this is in regards to the Marsabit Turkana Cultural Festival. It is the 14th edition. Our very own Regina Manyara is our eyes and ears for this event. But back to studio, Latif Wekesa, karibu sana to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, very welcome. Now, when you look at some of those areas like the risk landscape and how the year has been as we end 2025, in your view, what is this thing that corporate Kenya is learning or picking as lessons on as far as risks is concerned?
Yeah. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be hosted here. As you rightfully put, I work at Minet, Kenya Insurance Brokers. We are the top leading risk advisor, not only in Kenya but across East Africa. And we pride for that because we enjoy 78 heritage years in terms of providing risk advisory services. Well, looking at 2025, it has been quite an interesting year. Where we sit risk advisors, we know risk as uncertainty, but definitely it has come to turn out to be certain. In terms of evolution and how risk dynamic is today, it's a bit different. Where we sit, we never knew that at some point there would be something called Gen Z, and most business were never prepared to pick up such risk. So what is it that we are telling our corporate clients and as our role as risk manager? Is the time to rethink, review, and create what we call red alerts that can capture any evolution in terms of risk. From the matrix that we, of course, laid the market, political unrest and stability has affected each and every entity. Cyber threat is no longer a story of the Europeans or mature markets, but is here with us. Remember, we are the leading partners in terms of acceleration, in terms of adoption of technology. That is key. Of course, we are also seeing a lot of climate change risk. Floods are really affecting most where we sit.
Just hold on a bit, Latif, as we try to work on your mic. Some bit of glitch there. But as we do that, remember that we are talking about risk lessons for corporate Kenya, particularly in the year ending 2025. What is this lessons that corporate Kenya can draw as far as risk management is concerned? Looking at also matters of risk advisories and what insurance firms are doing to perhaps help corporate Kenya. And this is in around various thematic areas, areas of climate. For instance, we're looking at areas of cyber threats, which is a very big issue, as just Latif was mentioning there, and also the overall well-being of workers, particularly when you look at the year endings, sometimes a lot of fatigue experienced among workers. What exactly is the entire sector doing? And also with the advent of technology and AI, when you talk about business, you can never miss talking about artificial intelligence and technology and how this is growing over time. To what end is this posing a risk, particularly to individuals in the corporate sector, as well as by extension businesses? And what are some of these risk advisory firms, what are some of these insurance firms doing to mitigate some of these issues? Looking at cyber threats, for instance, talking about the Cyber Security Act, which is an active matter in court, but really to what end is this affecting businesses, and what defense mechanisms can businesses have, especially as we head over to 2026? For instance, what are some of those lessons that they're learning when it comes to cyber threats, which is a very big and key issue? And as we draw nearer to the next year, what lessons are they learning? Are they picking as they head over to this year to sort of like safeguard and defend themselves? Because it's here to stay, technology is here to stay, artificial intelligence is here to stay, but then we need to be better prepared for this. This is what we are discussing with our guest, Latif Wekesa, I believe now your mic is well. You can continue canvassing just before we head over to Marsabit for that live link on that cultural festival. But there's something you're mentioning now, again, before we come back to you. Sorry for that, Latif. Let's quickly head over to Marsabit, where the 14th edition of the Marsabit Turkana Cultural Festival is taking place. The Deputy President Kithure Kindiki is there. Regina Manyara is our eyes and ears on the ground. Ray, the festival is currently underway. What more can you tell us from Marsabit?
Thank you very much, Doreen Arange. As you can see, we are in county number 10, that is Marsabit County, and where we are standing right now, it's quite windy and sunny. Remember, Marsabit County is hosting the largest wind power project within sub-Saharan Africa, especially East African, looking at 310 megawatts to the national grid. I'm talking about the Lake Turkana wind power project. We may be a few kilometers away from this particular project, but nonetheless, the winds are quite strong, as you can see. So we are really struggling to speak, struggling to walk. And to you, if you are featherweight, we are not too sure you'll make walking across this particular side. But now let me bring you back to why we are here. We are keeping tabs on the 1 week long 14th edition of the Marsabit Lake Turkana Cultural Festival that is currently underway. And this side here, we are having at least 3 predominant communities within Marsabit County that are showcasing their song, their dance, their cuisine. This year's theme is around just fostering a nexus, community, and also peace for prosperity. It's also going to feature a half marathon. But to give us more details in regard to this particular cultural festival and why you ought to be here is none other than the CEC in charge of tourism, trade and cooperatives, Mr. Jeremy Ledani. Thank you very much, sir, for having us here. So tell us, why come to the Marsabit Cultural Festival 2025?
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for also joining us in this event. Like you said, my name is Jeremy, the CC in charge of tourism. I want to first welcome everyone who did not maybe arrive to join us in this very important event that we occasionally do biannually. I think this is our 14th edition of Marsabit Lake Turkana Cultural Festival. And we do this for various reasons. One of the things that we aim to promote is cultural tourism. Like you said, this county is blessed and endowed with different ethnic or indigenous communities. Actually, I think it's the only county in Kenya where we have over 14 different indigenous communities with diverse cultural backgrounds and diverse cultural heritage, very rich cultural heritage. 14 of them showcasing together, as you can see behind us here. We have different communities showcasing their rich cultural heritage. And like other counties, if you go to other counties in Kenya, you'll be able to have a cultural festival and one community participates. So what distinguishes Marsabit from other counties is that you can be able to get 14 different communities showcasing different kinds of cultures, and that definitely will promote cultural tourism. So we do this event biannually to open up this area for cultural tourism, which is one of the cultural products that we have in this region. Number 2, we also do this event to integrate communities. Remember, this county has 14 different indigenous communities with diverse cultures, and every community has their own, way of life, their own cuisines, different food cultures that you've seen being portrayed here. So we also try to integrate people. When we do that, we cement community cohesion and social cohesion. We also make people to appreciate each other's culture. And so that, you can see different communities dancing different styles. And so every single person will be able to appreciate another person's diversity.
Now, sir, you have said Marsabit does host 14 communities with distinct, cultural traits. among them the El Molo, the Dasenach. These are among the minority groups, yes, within the country. So what are you doing in your capacity to ensure that as we assimilate, they do not lose what makes them unique as, you know, the Dasenach or the El Molo? And how then does it come into play in such a festival as we bring this to a close, since we are going to be keeping tabs on this?
Excellent, thank you so much. One of the things that the county government of Marsabit is doing in partnership with National Museums of Kenya, we have a program called Documentation and Digitization of Indigenous Knowledge Assets. Those small communities are only found in Marsabit, in the whole country. Like, for example, the El Molo, the Dasanach, like you rightfully put. We are working with the National Museums of Kenya alongside other partners to ensure that we document the indigenous knowledge products. All right, that includes, you know, art crafts, technology, the dances, issues to do with food, cultures, traditional medicines, the dress codes and fashion, all these kind of things. We are documenting all this for future generations. So even if the generations that will come in the next 100 years, they're able to actually look into our indigenous knowledge banks at the county government and be able to see the different aspects of life for that particular community. Right. That is one thing that we are doing to make sure that these indigenous knowledge assets don't get eroded by the Western cultures and Westernization and urbanization and all these kind of things. Number two, another thing that we're also doing is why we are hosting this event here. This is the home to the El Molo, the smallest community we have in Kenya. They are actually found here in Loyangalani at the shores of Lake Turkana. By us hosting this event in this particular place, it simply shows that we recognize their culture, their way of life, just like any other community in Kenya. So we have a lot of plans as government to ensure that these small communities, they are also kind of recognized, not just even here culturally, but even in government.
All right. Very well said. As you've heard, that is the main reason why the Marsabit County government is hosting this particular cultural festival that is going to be running for the next several days and culminates in a half marathon, all geared towards integration and social economic development that is pushed or anchored on cultural tourism. I'm Regina Manyara reporting live from the Marsabit Turkana Cultural Festival site here in Loyangalani, and I hand it back to you, Broadcasting House.
Thank you very much, Regina Manyara, there from Marsabit County, where the 14th edition of the Marsabit Cultural Festival is currently underway. Began yesterday on Wednesday, that was on 3rd December, all the way to 7th of December by end of this week, bringing together various leaders, local communities, as well as dignitaries just coming together to celebrate the culture there. Back to studio, we want to continue with our conversation, still holding court with my guest, Latif Wekesa, General Manager and Head of Business Development at Minet Kenya. We are centering this discussion around risk lessons for corporate Kenya as the year ends 2025. And just before we took the various breaks, Latif, we're trying to look at some of those lessons that corporate Kenya can learn as far as risk is concerned. You had mentioned a few. You can continue finishing on what that is that we can learn.
Thank you, Doreen. Traditionally, what we do within Minet is we have a matrix under which we track risk. Remember, I mentioned that we now enjoy 78 years being in this market. Yeah. So literally, we have seen every evolution. Of course, the interesting fact is the social and the political unrest that we did see over the years. Chances are it could have escaped most of the CEOs, knowing that the definition of terrorism was majorly skewed to the likes of extremist group like the Al-Shabaab. But now here we see an organized group framed in the name of Gen Z, pushing for change and pushing government. So technically that falls within a political angle. We see the destruction, of course, which happened as a result of that agitation within our town. So how are we prepared as an organization in terms of to secure that? Of course, another thing we are seeing in 2025, high regulatory scrutiny within the market, enforcement within various regulatory bodies that we see, central bank putting pressure on banks to make sure that they comply with certain regulation. Of course, that comes with liability in terms of when there is a breach of the guidelines. So as a CEO, where you sit today within your space, how are you able to monitor? Do you have a matrix at where we sit? Of course, the climate change risk and the floods, it's estimated that in the market we have lost, or rather accumulated, over 6 billion worth of claims that has actually resulted from the floods. Then the question is, do you have a tool in terms of risk transfer tools as a measure, and how has it adopted, or is it, are you able to measure the responsiveness? And as risk advisor, that's one of the key roles actually we do play in the market, just to make sure that whatever framework of risk management tools that you have in place, you're able to put in place. I think if you look at also the data that is available about the cyber threat, I think close to 4.5 billion threats have been seen within the market. Every organization is in terms of race to automate, but are they ready in terms of building the cyber resilience? Because now we have moved from the framework of cyber security to cyber resilience. Do you have a response mechanism plan in place? Do you have a recovery? Do you have a team that can be able to support? And also, do you have a tool, a correct tool in terms of risk transfer? And as risk advisor, that is actually the role that we do play.
Yeah, and you talk about moving digital, and it just reminded me of the e-government, e-GP, that really was a craze, and how we need to move to this space. But you raise a very pertinent question. It is good to move there. It is necessary for tracking and everything else. But then, are we ready for the threats therein? Do we have stamina? Do we have defense mechanisms for that? Before we look at even climate, before we look at cybersecurity, just from all the matters you have raised as far as those risks is concerned, as risk advisories, what are you doing in your capacity to perhaps safeguard and help businesses cope with this? Because some of these things are just here to stay.
Correct.
Yeah.
We do have a framework that we operate, and is a global standard across. Remember, we are one of the leading brokers that have a privilege to enjoy the networks of leading insurance brokers globally, the likes of the Aon. Those are actually our partners. So we have the capacity and ability to tap in terms of what is happening today in London, and able to localize. So one of the frameworks that we have actually built is in terms of how do we ensure that we map a risk of an organization independently but direct to the operation, and also develop a predictability approach in terms of this is what is being faced now, then this is the future. Then number two, how do we align the growth and the strategic partner, or rather objective of an organization to the future, so that we have a clear roadmap that has, while we deal with the risk that faces the organization now, but as they develop, depending on their objective going in the future, then are there frameworks from a risk management transfer tools that are there. And one of the things that we do basically sit with the key business leaders within the organization. We do what we call a workshop. And that workshop will involve every head of business, and like, look, this is how you operate. And from where we sit, from the benchmark, these are actually emerging solutions. So we do what we call a customized solution. So you develop, you design, then you review, then you execute. So with that framework, we are able to touch each and every, what we usually say, the segment or the operation within the company, and just to make sure that any dynamic or any change of the risk should also reflect how the organizations are actually moving forward. So that has always been how we do our business. Then, of course, more importantly is with availability of much proprietary data within the Aon group, then we are able to actually bring the global standard and look at, yes, this is how your objective look like, but a similar organization maybe in London operating within your same space, this is how they are looking, or this is where they were 20 years ago, and these were the challenges that they did face. So with that, we're able, again, just to harness the risk management approach from the company perspective.
All right. Now, Latif, one would say that it is one thing for you to assist businesses as it pertains to these risks, regardless of whichever ones they are. But you, as risk advisors, as insurance firm, has this risks, first of all, affected you as firms before you come down to businesses and corporate and see how best you can assist them, and how do you deal with that as the first line? Yeah,
of course, we run business, so it's not any different from any other organization. Only that you're running a broadcasting house, then our side is also to take risk. Yes, within the insurance framework, the cyber threat space, remember we we fully automated, so we depend on system. So in case of any cyber attack, or in case of any injury affecting an employee, just that the business environment is a bit different. But what we do, of course, within the organization, whatever we implement internally in terms of the framework that we do have from a risk resilience perspective is the same that we implement. Now I'll pick, for example, the cyber related incident. So we have a cyber resilient framework within the organization that actually guides step by step in terms of not only just prevention, but do we have a response management plan? For example, if there's an attack today, what is it that happened? Then do we have a recovery plan? Then more importantly, where do we take the residual risk? So we as an organization, we have also taken up the cyber insurance solution. That yes, as much as we do everything to defend, but any residual risk, then we do transfer. Remember, insurance, the concept of insurance is about sharing of the risk. So as much as we pick up risk from the corporate, who the only point of advantage we have is ability and capacity and appetite to manage the risk, while other institutions, other corporates, for example, manufacturing, their core will actually be producing either beverage or whatever sector that they will be. So while we pick risk as a product, we also have a mechanism that we share within the insurance space. So the product that we do consume from insurance product as a tool of risk transfer is also a similar product that we actually roll it over. The only maybe difference with us is maybe from a product perspective, we are more risk conscious. So our appetite in terms of consumption of this product might be much more higher. One, because of availability of information, and just make sure that we build a much more framework that is more resilient.
Yeah, because that would have been important to understand. While you protect me as the business or as being in corporate, for you as the advisor, what are you doing to safeguard? Because if I see you safeguarded, then I can be comfortable and confident that I'm well.
Yes.
All right, now let's stick on that cyber threats, Matt, as one of those risk areas. And just let me pick your mind and in your view how these threats have escalated locally and by extension globally, and the kind of risk it actually poses, largely in those businesses or even corporate Kenya.
Great. I think one previously the lacking or the missing point within the Kenyan space was actually legislation. Now we have a Data Protection Act which actually provides a clear definition and also attaches liability in terms of how you handle data and in terms of data breach. So that aside, we'll always pick any liability to any organization. And number one, what we do for our organization, for example, when it comes to issues to do with the cyber, and number one, we look at the compliance, the in-house compliance in terms of Data Protection Act. So we segment, are you a data controller, are you a subject data, because anybody that is collecting personal identifiable information, you're actually subject to comply with the data protection. So by that virtue, already you are exposed to, or rather you're a candidate of a cyber liability threat, because you have to comply within the operation. Then number two, how automated are you? Remember, digital space has made the world a global village. That is the second that we look at. Now you're moved into automation. Then is it an in-house automation or third party? So what we have actually seen is most of the cyber threat that happen, or most attack, are actually coming from the suppliers, the vendors. And what I'll give an example is, you look at the integration between the banks and the telco companies. So you have your mobile app accessing through the bank. So it's an easy area that you can actually find an attacker will actually use either your mobile application to get into. So with that, we can be able actually to map and put you now within a framework. Then we move to what we call pen testing and penetration, just to see how your cyber resilient framework is. And sometimes we usually encourage our clients. So where we sit, we'll do the first basic. Then through other experts, then we do encourage our client now on the environment that you operate. It's better now to take a full penetration testing just to see how your resilient of the cyber is. Then any residual risk that is there, then the risk transfer of the cyber insurance solution comes in. So that's how we are able to support our clients.
Cyber resilience, does it go down to an individual or in the entire company or corporation? How does this work?
Where we sit today, and I'll just point out, I think the first regulation in terms of the cyber framework was actually published, should be in 2020, if I'm not wrong, by the central bank, and the focus was actually in terms of the payment service provider, and it was actually putting responsibility to key individuals, that is the CEO and CTO. But today, what we encourage our corporates that we handle and the people that we advise, can you elevate the cyber threat to the level of the board, so that it's a board discussion, it's not an individual discussion. We have seen organization with the total shutdown. So it's a discussion that is not an individual discussion, but is a board discussion that needs to actually to be part and parcel of their strategy and how they respond, because it's the leading global risk that we face today. So it's not left to only that IT admin, but it's a discussion that we elevate to the board, so that it is a governance discussion, and it's a purely focus that every decision that is made at the board level should actually be implemented to be able to support the cyber resilient.
Yeah, and that really looks like to be the next level of thinking, because also just going back by what we saw some 2 weeks back with the shutdown of some of those government agencies,
yes,
and the attack that services were literally on a standstill.
Absolutely.
Going down to, it's not an IT expert kind of thing, it's actually a collective effort.
A collective effort.
But there's one thing you've mentioned when you're giving the example perhaps of banks and telco companies, saying that some of these threats, it's someone who knows someone who actually knows someone. It's not an alien outsider somewhere, somehow there. What does this speak to our mannerisms? Because again, you could put all these safeguards and mitigating factor, but if it goes down to our morals, there'll always be an avenue of trying to get into that and still
in fact,
have those threats.
One of the statistics that is actually available globally, and one of the avenues that organizations have actually found themselves victim of actually cyber is actually insider information. And sometimes we are difficult economic times where you'll find maybe one of your employee could be compromised, and maybe they could actually maybe issue data or provide critical password that could actually be there. So in terms of what we call another layer of introduction to what we call human firewall. So human firewall, we will actually ensure that how do you manage disgruntled employees. So not only the firewalls that we do have, but do you also have a framework in terms of human firewall? Then number two, what is so common, there is intentional and intentional unknowingly. So we have a lot of what we call siphon, where you have, or rather sometimes somebody is social engineering. And it largely affects an organization because of lack of training. So you have an email which has actually been generated from a known source, but the domain of email tends to appear to be similar. It could be a payment that you needed to actually make out to a vendor, and somebody actually shares with you similar email with giving you instruction. So you, without double checking, so it will have an invoice, but failure to double check, maybe the bank accounts will actually be not the actual bank account. I can take, for example, now with the issue of AI automation, where there's actually AI generating voices. You can be maybe seated in your office, you get a Teams invite, no camera is actually put on, they've actually imitated the voice, or rather cloning the voice of the CEO, and you are given instructions, we have this supplier, could you please proceed and pay? So we are actually seeing that happen. So the aspect of human firewall in terms of how do you handle this grant, and more importantly, training and just creating awareness. And that's actually what we do in terms of when we speak about cyber to our clients, just to make sure that how do we create awareness that these are the key watch points to watch when in your day-to-day operation.
And I think that's a very critical element when you look at the human element of it, and we'll look at that in a short while. But let's take a bit on those cyber threats. And you mentioned a bit earlier about Data Protection Act.
Correct.
You also have the Cyber Security, the amended. Never mind, it's an active matter in court. Some elements of it still being a bone of contention to some section of Kenyans.
Yes.
But then this brings down the question of, is it really a question of just legislation and laws? Because we can have all this in place, but sometimes we sort of look still missing the point. It still looks like we are missing the point. What really is the challenge, and how do we navigate this? And as you respond to that, what are you doing as risk advisors? to help navigate this?
Yeah, I think from a risk advisory perspective, maybe I can pick from that.
Yes.
One is our key role is actually to create awareness. And our awareness from a standpoint for us is majorly the aspect of transfer and making sure that our organizations or other clients are aware that cyber threat is real and is here to stay and it's dynamic. It will keep on changing from day to day. So that's actually our major role. So number two, when it comes to the aspect of legislation, our key role, or rather just to safeguard our clients, is to look at the aspect that actually attaches a legal responsibility to, for example, what happens if there is a personal breach of information. And that's why I say, how do we put you? Are you a data controller? Are you a subject data? Then from there, now we'll be able to actually show you the map, then offer the solution in terms of the transfer. So our role as risk manager is not necessarily to go ahead and interpret the law, but look at the key aspect that attaches liability to an organization within the act. Then is it a risk that can be transferred through an insurance tool, or is it a risk that could be contained by putting regulations or framework within the organization? So that's where we stop. Then we leave the legal interpretation to the lawyers.
To the legalese of it.
To the legalese.
All right, so then we with that, Latif, what are some of these threats that you're seeing in 2025, even as the year winds down? Those cyber threats, to be very specific, for corporates, Kenya, and businesses.
I'll pick, for example, I think during, and maybe we'll see it, during Chan, tickets at some point system were not working, and what was there is there could have been possibility that remember, Kenya is one of the hub of IT, what we call Silicon Savannah. So there are quite intelligent young men here that can be able to generate robotics. And one of the key issues actually that there could be robots which are actually being injected within the system to actually buy tickets. And sometimes now the pressure, that's where the system was actually collapsing. So for an organization, number one, I think as we move to close of the year, is do you have a framework in terms of how you manage your cyber? Do you monitor it 24 hours? Have you embraced adoption maybe of IT just to help you, or rather AI, to help you actually have that 24 hours release? And then number two, do you have a risk partner that actually walks you through? Then have you taken time to actually review? So we have Kenya being within the COMESA and also falling within what we call the general data protection. So you'll be transacting with organization maybe from Europe within that framework. So look at even your partners, the people that you interact or do business with. What are the legal framework within the organization that speaks about cyber? So if you have deficiency in terms of that capacity, then I'll request that you visit us as Minet Kenya Insurance Brokers. We have a framework that we've actually established that we can walk you through, help you to actually look at the various pinpoints that you could actually fall short. But of essence is, as a business leader, as the CEO, we are aware that these are some of the risks that may give you sleepless night. But you have a correct partner. This is a solution that are actually available within the framework. So cyber threat, so you look at the vendors, how do you interact with your vendors? Number two, even from the bare minimum, how have you complied within the data protection? Do you have a data protection officer? How often do you update your IT and the system regulations and framework within the organization? So those are the key pertinent issues that any CEO should actually be looking at. Then number two, it's not a CEO responsibility. Please elevate it to the board level so that it's a governance issue that is a collective responsibility.
So this question of updating, sometimes you even have it in your phone, update the system, and this is just why are you disturbing me? So some of these things actually feed into this.
Absolutely, it does feed into this. So you can, just like any other normal organization, like maybe the supermarket, you'll find they do stock take, maybe monthly or weekly. So it should be part of the framework that any organization should have. Can we have maybe major monthly, quarterly updates? So you can pick one of the Saturdays where people are not maybe busy within the office and just make sure that all the updates are actually running through.
That is very necessary, as you mentioned. Now, with the advent of new media, technology by itself, and now AI, which is really revolutionizing, you think of it, businesses, corporate, whatever it is, you talk to face recognition, the voice and the likes. So essentially, this AI as a tool, what kind of risks is it posing largely as a whole, and what defense mechanisms can corporate employees, can businesses employ even as they head over to the new year, 2026, to better safeguard?
Absolutely. So we have a solution where we talk about integrating cyber insurance, what we call commercial crime, and what we call technology errors and of omission, which basically seeks to take care of that framework, especially where there's a lot of adoption of AI, because AI will come in different formats. There's where they can come from a third-party vendor, and one of the issue is how can they be used to actually siphon passwords that you can actually have access. And of course, the major threat will actually be where you are holding actual cash, maybe virtual cash through mobile wallets. And we have actually seen transfers of cash or loss of funds being taken to that. Then number two, we're also seeing what we call the ransomware attack, where you have encryption of data and actually loss of cash. So one of most recent, and I'll pick up one of the case that was before Senate, and that was during the impeachment of the Kericho governor. You remember one of the questions that they were actually asking is whether at the point of voting the system had second factor authentication. So there is that what we call adoption of zero trust. So zero trust security means that for everything, please verify, don't trust. And that's where second authentication factor actually comes in. So every transaction that is actually done, don't assume.
Part of the reason why it flopped.
Yes, exactly. There was no second authentication, and the IT team could not actually support that. Indeed, this person really voted, because it was only one way. So that is actually a global standard, that zero trust in terms of security. There should be always second authentication multi-factor for any organization.
Yeah, I hear you. Now, just aside from cyber threats, another key issue that perhaps you can look at as the year winds down also is the question of climate risk and insurance. And you can look this from the facets of the heavy rainfall, the destructions therein, and also the drought. In fact, yesterday, some leaders from northern Kenya were asking government to declare drought a national disaster. And you realize for us as a country, and even by extension the region, if it's not about drought, whereby we have the loss of lives and the likes, we now have a heavy rainfall, destruction of property, loss of lives, and therein. As insurance firms, for such disasters as this, were you prepared across the year, and how did this look like for you as far as risks?
From of course, from the insurance angle, remember our role is actually to transfer the residual risk. So it's an appetite that sits within the insurance space. So we have a number of products, and maybe what we need to do more of this show is actually to provide education and just educate the member of the public. From a risk transfer from climate perspective, especially from agric, we have solutions which are called parametric insurance solution. We have what we call weather index, and we also have a standalone flood insurance. And I think if you check through the media, it should be in Kitui. If not, should be in Kitui last year. I think through one of the leading reinsurers, Swiss Re, flood insurance was actually claim was actually paid. Where I think, if I'm not wrong, about 21 farmers also were actually affected. So where I sit from the industry space as a risk practitioner, I think the gap that is actually lacking within the market is one, the education and capacity and awareness, just to take it to the farmer. Then number two is build confidence to the customer, so that they can be able to know that, yes, even if I pick up an insurance, there will actually be a payout. So, and one of the advantage, of course, if you have a risk partner like Minet, our role is actually to bridge that trust deficit. remember, our principal is actually the client that we work for. So we'll be able to actually advise and advise you who is the correct partner in addition to what product actually fits. So we have specific products to an extent, even what we have an area yield insurance. So you find maybe you're coming, myself from Western Kenya, this is expectation in terms of this is actually known area of harvest.
Yes.
Then by bad luck, then or rather blessing, which is more over and above, you find the floods. Then all the harvest has actually been known, but you have historically what you have always harvested in a particular size of land. So if you pick up an area yield insurance, it will actually be able to help you recover. When it comes to, of course, the issue of drought, I think through the World Bank, ZEPRI, and I think Kenya Development Corporation, the KCD, there is a drive project. I think it was a pilot for about 14 counties. And that seeks actually to protect the counties within the semi-arid with a solution in terms of a risk transfer. Should there be a drought, how much cash do you need to buy fodder to keep your animal until the next season where there could be short rain? So in terms of solutions are there. So the OMS of us is actually one, the duty to actually educate, penetrate. Remember, the insurance penetration is at 2.3%, stagnated for quite some time. So how do we actually use such platform like Channel One just to make sure that we move? And even, for example, with the cultural festival that is happening in Marsabit,
yes.
Do they know that there's what is called event liability? So if there's a stampede today there and there's a loss of life, so what happens? So you find that the products are actually readily available, but the missing link is actually one, to build a trust and educate more the client to actually know that these are solutions which are available. Then, of course, more importantly,
yes.
you remember we have more, maybe largely, Kenya will have much more small-scale farmers. Then are we able to actually break down the products, the bites that these small clients can be able to buy and afford insurance? And that's now we have micro insurance product that we've actually put in place that can actually support clients, not only from agri, but even from health cost financing. You're getting a product as low as 3,000, 4,000 shillings, and also giving an opportunity or latitude to actually spread the payout. So that's the duty that we do have as risk advisors.
Yes, and just as you mentioned the gaps, there's a lot of creation of awareness that looks like is still lacking. Even as you mentioned, the event planning, insurance. I would even wonder if someone would even think about that until when it happens. So what are some of these practical lessons that businesses can learn, particularly when it comes to dealing with climate risks and how to better manage, from your view?
So I think we will not. We just want to go in 2024. I think that has been the worst year in terms of flood, and like I'd mentioned, we had about 6 billion worth of losses that are actually paid, and it's up to date they're actually being paid through the market. One of the key,
year later, they're still being paid.
They're still being paid. One of the lessons, I'm forgetting about this, but there's one person that has been funded by Zuckerberg. I think he was doing about 100 acres in Kitui, and one time he went to the farm. There were heavy rains, and there was nothing actually to harvest. So there are real life example where farmers or any other entrepreneur have actually suffered because of climate change. So I think one of our duties is actually how do we amplify such examples, and maybe through NGOs that work with farmers. So our role is how do we amplify, maybe through the government, Ministry of Agriculture, how do we amplify that such that it's a real life example, and also when we make the payout, how do we make noise about it, so that people know that indeed when you do transfer the risk, then you'll actually have a payout.
I hear you. Now, another area is employee well-being. As an advisor, risk advisor, insurance firm, what are some of these issues, trends you're seeing, particularly when it comes to employee burnout as the year comes to an end? So it's sometimes a general trend. First of all, why is that, and what are you seeing, and how to better deal with that?
Well, I think number one is there's a lot of economic pressure, and I'll speak from the service industry perspective because we provide service. So the expectation of every investor in any organization is actually returns. So we find one, with slow economic slowdown,
Yes.
there will be in terms of limitation, in terms of new hire. People will not want to spend more because your business are looking at probably sustainability. So with that, there could be an increase in terms of workload. Then with an increase of workload, then of course burnout. Then sometimes the quality of service will actually be affected to the client, and sometimes it can actually lead to a loss. So one of the things that we have done, particularly within Minet and also for our client, is we have a mental wellness center that supports employees plus also the clients. So that is covering both social psychological support in terms of sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. That, hey, I'm just burning out. What is it that can be able to do? Then introducing of recreational facilities and or maybe swimming for your employee, just to make sure that they are pretty active. That then can you give them maybe a hybrid solution? We have work policy. Work 2 days in office, 3 days at home, or vice versa. So whichever actually fits you. So you can decide to come up in the morning, work, then in the afternoon take a break, just to make sure that that burnout does not really affect the performance and the mental state of the employee.
All right. So some of those investments in the workplace, Latif, what is this that businesses can employ? Because then if you have proper investment, you have a productive workforce.
Correct.
How do this go hand in hand? And how can they invest in this?
I think number one, in any investment for an organization is actually the employee.
Yes.
So when you keep them healthy, then definitely the results will actually come. So introduction of fringe benefits support to employees will actually be a key factor in terms of how do they provide. So some of these policies, like creating a recreation facility, should be a benefit that is actually embedded within the employment contract of an employee. And by that will actually see a return being realized by being intentional in terms of how you manage your employees.
All right. Now, as we wind down, Latif, what will be perhaps your closing message when it comes to corporate and businesses as a whole, as far as leveraging opportunities is concerned and proper defense mechanisms on the risks available?
So as of course, as we be that basically we'll be looking at 2026. What is it that organizations should be looking at?
Yes.
From a risk management perspective, our clarion call for every organization or SME, most insurance contracts or risk framework are actually coming to an end within this year. So it's a time that you need to take time to actually review and look at the past incidents, whether the risk framework that you have actually employed in place, has it served the purpose? If it has not served the purpose, then the next obvious thing is for you to look at a partner who has capability, understanding of how risk is managed overall. And I dare say that partner will be actually Minet Kenya Insurance Broker. We welcome you, that we can give you a pro bono advice in terms of give you a framework, profile for you how your risk is, and also give you a plan how to move forward to manage the risk.
Yeah, this just all just to better manage risks and better prepare and equip yourself.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Latif has been Latif Wekesa, General Manager and Head of Business Development at Minet Kenya, and what has formed center of this conversation in this last hour, risk lessons for corporate Kenya, how businesses and corporate Kenya can be able to manage risks that is well over to 2026. Thank you so much for making time for us. This has been BizCheck. I'm Doreen Arange, paving way for Tangrini Kurunzi coming in the next hour.